Welcome back to the Tuesday night lecture at the LA Chess Club. The next game is from Glasgow, Scotland, 1923, and we have, at that time, the challenger for the World Championship, Alekhine against Forster. Alekhine is white, Forster is black. Alekhine starts with e4. Forster responds with e5. And knight f3. And the knight c6. All standard stuff. And it looks like our first Ruy Lopez of the evening. Bishop to b5, attacking the guard of the pawn, allowing white to castle right away. And sure enough, Mr. Forster answers with a question. Mr. Bishop, what do you want to do? What's your intention? Tell me now. I'll retreat, says the bishop. And knight f6. Looks like a Berlin variation of the Ruy Lopez. Magnus Carlsen has been playing this for the last couple of years with a lot of very good results. Alekhine answers with a development of his own, knight c3. Mr. Forster answers with bishop to c5. And looks like we have a symmetrical, almost symmetrical. This is a normal Ruy Lopez. Aha. So let's take a look and see what we have here. Knight takes pawn. Alekhine has decided before he castles to start the action in the center. Sure enough, knight takes knight. And of course, we have our fork. So, black has a bunch of options. Save the knight or save the bishop. Well, not only save the bishop, but let's create our own pin on the knight. Looks good. Pawn takes knight, getting his piece back. And Mr. Forster says, I'm getting my pawn back because your knight's pinned. It can't take me back. There's an absolute pin here, and I get my pawn back. Neither side is castled. A lot of action in the center. Alekhine has one pawn left on one of the four center squares. So I'm just wondering, if you're white, what's your next move? Well, a tactic. Looks like a double attack from white. Queen d4, attacking along the fourth rank, the knight and the bishop at the same time. But black can easily counter that, I think. He could have either taken this with a check and then saved the knight, maybe. Ooh, yeah, because the queen's guarding it. All right, so, but black decides to take the knight. Pawn takes knight, attacking the bishop. And the bishop just retreats, keeping the pin on the pawn to the king. Now a move that you're going to see, and I want you guys to try to remember this move, because this is going to probably win you a lot of games throughout your chess career, if you can just remember this idea. Bishop to a3, preventing black from castling. If you prevent your opponent from castling as long as possible, you can create scenarios that will cause him or her enormous problems, because an uncastled king now is 4 moves easier to checkmate as opposed to a castled king. And this simple little move here, keeping black from castling, is probably going to allow Alekhine to win the game. Pawn to b6. Alekhine continues his attack in the center against the uncastled king. Now, it's true that he hasn't castled either, but it seems that he's got 2 bishops and a queen aiming towards this king. I only see one bishop here. So it's probably that's why he didn't castle. He's trying to tear the center open to get at the king before black has a chance to castle. And he still can't castle, can he? All right. The next one is, of course, here to win the queen, because the queen will be trapped. So that's a threat there. So black has to watch out for that threat. If pawn takes pawn, he gets right. It's pinned, so he can't. If this pawn takes, let's see if that pawn takes. How about pawn takes pawn check here? He's threatening. Oh, and then there would be, this is like mate in two. Oh my. All right, queen has to come out. Let's trade queens. I can't allow any more problems. Bishop takes check. Remember, checks freeze the game. Checks are very strong tempo busters. If bishop takes, queen takes, mate. Because the king can't escape because of the bishop. So the bishop can't take, and the king can't take because it's in check. So the king has to move, right? I think this is his only move. He can't move here. He'd be in check. Oh, my goodness. Discovered check. Queen takes queen. And now Alekhine, before he became world champion. Checkmate with a pawn. That's why he was Alekhine, or Alekhine, the Russian pronunciation. Look at that game. Unbelievable. Wow. Okay. Not bad for a world champion to be. He was, I think, 2 years away from beating Capablanca in 26. 3 years away. This is 1923. So he was getting close. He was just a few years away from the world championship. Absolutely fantastic. Okay. Let's see what we got. Liverpool, England. Speckley versus Mongren. Speckley, e4, Mongren, e5. Sounds pretty good. Aha! Our first King's Gambit of the night. F4. Pawn takes pawn. Knight out to stop this nasty check from the queen. Bishop to e7. Bishop to c4, attacking the very weak f7 pawn. Bishop h4, check. Now, I think this violates one of the opening principles, moving the same piece twice before you develop your other pieces. But he might have an idea, because even if the knight takes, queen will say check. You can't block the check because of the pawn take, queen take, rook. And basically, you're stopping white from castling. So it might have been worthwhile to move the same piece twice. Sure enough, knight takes bishop. Queen takes knight, check. And I'm thinking king to f1 is correct, and that's the way that a King's Gambit is played. Knight to f6, coming in immediately for the e4 pawn, and maybe over here, trying to look at checkmate right here with the queen. If the knight comes in here, here's a checkmate square. So that knight is a very powerful move. Queen up to get some protection around his king. Black continues with his development. Let's bring some more tanks onto the battlefield. White says, I'm ready to take this because I have 2 on it. Queen and bishop. You only have 1 queen guarding, right? Black says, let's tempo the queen with the idea of winning the rook, taking c2. That looks pretty good. So white has to respond, right? So queen back to guard the c2 square, which means he's already wasted 2 queen moves. And sure enough, knight in, threatening checkmate right here at f2. Wow. Black is just totally destroying white. I mean, he's got all kinds of army coming down on him. Queen to d2, blocking his own bishop, but he does protect the c2 square. Knight in for the check, protected by the pawn. Queen can't take, so king has to move. Well, let's see, he can't move here because of the queen. He can't move here because of the knight, so he's only got this square. When you give your opponent only squares to go to, you know that he's in deep trouble. Knight forking the queen and the king, a royal fork, so I guess white's only move is to take the knight, right? Queen check. Well, if the queen comes over to block, it'll be mate because the knight's governing, right? So king has to move either here or here. He's got f2 or f1. Oh, he doesn't have... yeah, so he's only got f2. You're right. Sorry, guys. f2 it is. Queen down, guarded by the knight. Boy, this pawn is really powerful guarding that knight. So king back is his only square. Queen takes rook check. Why not get a free rook in the deal? Looks pretty good. King here, and we have a mate. Wow. That king's gambit didn't work out very well for white, did it? You know, they don't play it very often anymore. Nakamura played it a few years ago in the U.S. Championship. I think he won with it. I think he was the last top-tier player in the world to play it in a major championship. It's just too wild and crazy a game. And today's grandmasters like a little more sanity in their openings. I mean, this is just too crazy. This stuff is just way out of whack for today's players. Okay, one more, and then we'll call it a night. Here we go. All these games can be found in Irving Chernoff's book, The 1,000 Best Short Games of Chess in History. And they are from world champions, unknowns. Even Napoleon Bonaparte has a couple of games in that book. So if you can find it online, you can order yourself your own copy. And it might even be online. I'm not sure if you can get it. Okay. Chigorin, which was a top grandmaster in the 1890s, early 1900s. He's white against Gussip in New York. 1889. E4, E5 looks pretty normal. Knight F3, Knight C6. See, everybody's doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And Chigorin was playing the Ponziani attack, even back in 1889. This is the Ponziani. Kasparov plays this a lot. Okay, C3. The idea is that you're going to play D4 and own the center with your 2 pawns immediately. Okay, now you are taking away the natural square for the knight, but to own the center, it's sort of a decent trade-off. Okay, black immediately attacks, counterattacks in the center first. Queen to a4 to pin the knight on the king, so this knight can't move. He's looking for the pin. This pawn now will be protected by this pawn, so when the knight takes, and the knight can't take back because it was pinned, at least it's protected from the f6 pawn. But I don't like that because you've moved this pawn before you've castled, and this creates a very dangerous weakness here on these light squares. Bishop to b5, putting 2 on this knight. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, check, and you'll win a pawn, maybe 2 pawns. You'll win the d5 pawn also. So certainly worth it. 2 pawns should be an easy win for these guys at this level. So knight on g to e7, guarding this a second time. Pawn takes pawn. And the only way to take it back, I guess, you could have taken it back, but then you would have lost the second defender of the c6 knight. So queen takes pawn. White castles. Getting ready to put the rook over here, I guess, on the e-file. Black is at least 2 moves away from castling, and that would be on the queen side. And I don't even think he should castle on the queen side, because takes knight, pawn takes queen takes a7. That wouldn't be healthy. And he's 1, 2, 3 moves away from castling on the king side, so he's in deep trouble already. So let's see. White just castled. Black takes away the nasty pin and puts a 3rd defender of the knight. Plus, he's getting ready maybe to castle queenside. I don't think it would be wise, though. All right. White decides to tear open the center. Why? Because he's got a castled king and black doesn't. It's your job to tear the center open when the king is still in the center on your opponent's side. You've castled, you're safe. This king is not safe at all. Okay? So let's tear it open. Black says, no, 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 I don't have to open it up. As a matter of fact, I'll push and I'll tempo your knight. Knight back, which blocks this bishop. So I'm not sure I like that. Knight over. Aha. Maybe here, maybe here. Starting to think about this square. Pawn push, queen here, guarded by the knight for a quick checkmate. Nice knockout punch by black. Why not tempo the queen? Okay. If you're the queen, where are you going to go? Not many places. Let's trade off. White says, no, 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 no. Let's renew a check threat here. You'll have to move your king and you won't be able to castle. Black says, go ahead. I don't care. Sure enough, White says, thank you. Check. King up. Off the back rank. Knight over with a tempo onto the queen. Let's see where the queen's going to go. Just back. But I don't like it. I think the queen's way out of position. Way out of position. Okay, let's take a look. First move, check. Okay, any piece of black's to block? No. Any piece to capture the checking piece? No. What's the only third option that you have? Run. So where can he run? I don't see a square.
He can run to, he can eat f7.
That's what he does. That's his only move. That's exactly what he does. That's exactly what he does. He eats f7. And unfortunately, this is a double discovered checkmate. Double discovered checkmate. And that's how they used to play it back then. This is a double discovered checkmate. You can't do anything. You check by the queen and the knight simultaneously. You discovered it, double discovered checkmate, the king's done. He's toast. It's over. It's dynamite. That's why double checks are so powerful. That was Chigorin. And he was one of the strongest players in the world for about 20 years. Just fantastic. I love this stuff. All right. That's it for tonight. Thank you. This is a lot of fun. Very nice games. Okay? See you soon.